Hey y'all, welcome to Paige's Perspective, where I help you find your inner strength to cope with life. If you're new here, hey, a little bit of background. I'm Paige, and I'm the other half of Till the Wheels Fall Off. My husband Matt and I have been together since we were 14. He was a closet addict for about 10-ish years. He's been in recovery for almost 13 years, and we started a podcast back in 2022, hoping to share some life skills and some random things about our lives. However, it turned into a space for spouses and partners of addicts and alcoholics, or even those with narcissistic behaviors, to feel seen. We shared my story a few years ago, and it went off, and we realized, you know what? We need to dig into this a little bit more. So here we are. Our content, our community, our program have really helped a lot of people gain some agency in their lives and some clarity. Matt has Monday episodes, and we do joint episodes on Wednesdays when we can. We haven't really been on point recently because life is lifing. And I have my Perspectives That Reliefs on Fridays. And they're typically growth oriented, and they can help anyone, even if they haven't been impacted by the person that they love. So we have many years of experience in this area, and we're hoping to truly change the recovery world. But even helping change one life has been totally worth it. It's not easy work. I'm not going to lie, but it's meaningful. And I've had many reminders lately as to why our work is so important. Now, we've been open and honest about this, is that we're in a season right now where we can't be here as much as we'd like. The podcast and content has kind of taken a back seat because we have kids and they are in extracurricular activities that are taking up a lot of our time. We have work, we have family, we have, just all the priorities that we have. They're just taking over a bit. And eventually we're going to find that healthy balance. But for now, we're trying to stay present and embrace what life is handing us. So I was really struggling to come up with a specific topic to discuss this week because I have so much to say, but I don't have much mental capacity to put everything into words or put out a message that could be meaningful. So I may just kind of go with the flow here and spit whatever's on my mind, but full transparency with everybody. I write my episodes of my perspectives because I'm not as articulate on the spot like my husband is. He's really, really good at public speaking and doing podcasts and coming up with things without even writing it out. He comes up with words on the spot, and I'm just not there yet. I'm not 100% there. We have completely different personalities. But I still have things to say, and I still enjoy podcasting where I can. And our message is important, even if it doesn't come out exactly how I like it. I'd love to be able to wing it sometimes, but I just don't have it in me all the time. And if you've been here a while, you know that I wasn't too thrilled to be a podcaster to begin with. It's definitely not something that was on my things I wanted to accomplish in my life. But here we are. We're big on getting outside of our comfort zone and doing things that you don't really want to do because that's where we grow. And if I hadn't agreed to continue doing this, I wouldn't have been able to create a space for people who truly need to feel heard and validated and seen and learn tools to get through some really, really tough times in their lives. So speaking of tough times, I've been reminded that things will happen in our lives that are out of our control, that will cause stress, that will make us want to effing collapse. Even the healthiest, strongest person will have things thrown at them that are uncomfortable, and they may struggle, and that's okay. We're here to remind you that life is going to throw shit at you when you least expect it. But how we come out of it and how we handle it is what makes a difference. So just remember that the bird didn't shit on you. It just shit. Life isn't out to get us. People are not out to get us. I mean, some are. Some people are probably out to get us. But we get to choose if we allow it to consume us. Do we want to be victims, or do we want to get the hell out of that victim mentality and take charge of our lives? Yeah, shit sucks sometimes. We didn't ask for this life, but it's reality. And when we acknowledge and accept reality, I'm not saying tolerate reality. I'm not saying that you just oh, you know what? This is what it is. We're able to take charge and make changes that align with our values and who we want to be. We can choose to stay in the instability and be the victim, or we can choose to say, you know what? Enough is enough. I'm not doing this anymore. That's empowering as fuck. We've had comments on social media where people suggest that, we keep others in the victim mentality. And I kind of just giggle about it because they're not listening to our messages in full. We use social media to validate people in their situations because it's important to understand they're not alone and we know why they feel the way they feel. But if you stop at social media and you don't look at the entire picture of what we do, you're missing out on some major growth opportunities. I know I sound a little bit fired up here, and I may get a little bit fired up in this episode, so just bear with me. I've kind of been fired up lately, so I'm going to try to keep it a little contained, but just bear with me, basically. My job, my mission, my purpose is to help people find themselves again, all right? To understand that they have agency, that they don't have to stay in survival mode forever, that they have options. We have choices. And that doesn't necessarily mean, leave or whatever. It means let's find ourselves again and figure out how to get out of survival mode and thrive. I wanted to talk about reactive defense, and then I wanted to talk about getting out of victim mentality, and then I wanted to talk about how to not take on others' feelings. And I have so much to say about so much, but I think I'm going to go with the how not to take on others' feelings topic today because that's fresh on my mind. It was a topic we discussed in our Reclaiming You meeting this week, and it was such a great discussion. I feel like I'd like to turn it into a topic, for the podcast today. If you don't know what Reclaiming You is, it's a program that Matt, myself, and a licensed therapist created for spouses and partners of alcoholics and addicts. When you've been negatively impacted by your most intimate relationship, you tend to lose yourself. And it's not just because you're so focused on what they're doing. No, it's deeper than that, all right? Being in a relationship with someone who lies, neglects, isolates, spends a lot of money on drugs or alcohol, who doesn't really care about your wants and needs, who manipulates, gaslights, weaponizes, all the things. I could go down a whole list of this stuff. It's going to make you feel crazy. You're going to begin to lose yourself. You begin to not recognize yourself anymore, and you don't know what reality is any longer. You may become hypervigilant. You do a lot of things out of character. You're just surviving day to day, and our program helps you reclaim yourself. We help build you up to make decisions that align with your values. You get access to the online program for as long as it's available. It's 10 modules long, full of videos and worksheets, and we understand how life can be super hectic, especially in this space. So we created it to be self-paced for that very reason. And you also get a weekly support meeting through Zoom with others going through the program. We typically have topics that are growth-oriented, and you're going to feel some hope by being surrounded by others who understand what you're going through. It's a really, really special place to be. You can go to reclaiming-u.com for more info, and we even offer a 3-month payment plan for those who need it. We also have t-shirts, stickers, water bottles, hoodies, recovery racks, and other merch, I think, at twfo.com. If you're not interested in the merch, but would like to support the show, you can do so at buymeacoffee.com/tufo. Thank you so much to those who have supported us during this journey. There are costs to podcasting, and we really, really appreciate you. Now, back to the topic. Now that I got that out of the way, let's actually have a discussion here. Let them feel. That was what my subject line said when I sent the email out to our Reclaiming You folks. Something I've learned over the years is that many of us take on the emotions of others, and this can be our partners, our kids, our coworkers, friends, family members, anyone. Shoot, strangers on the internet we can see, and we take on their emotions. When someone we love is sad or angry, stressed, maybe they're just in a bad mood, it can feel almost automatic to just jump in and try to make it better, right? We want to smooth things over. We want to offer solutions. We want to take responsibility for feelings that are not actually ours. And over time, this can leave us feeling anxious, exhausted, and disconnected from ourselves because we don't even know where our emotions begin and theirs end. We're so focused on them that we forget who we are and where our emotions are. It can be very exhausting. We got to learn how to pause, possibly validate instead of fix, stay grounded while someone else is uncomfortable. Allowing others to feel their feelings, it's not cold, it's not uncaring. I know it feels uncomfortable, it feels unfamiliar, but it's actually a sign of emotional maturity and healthy boundaries. Trust me, I've been on both sides of this, and it's so much better when I don't take on others' emotions. I'm an empath and a highly sensitive person. I had some moments in my life where I did take on the emotions of others, and it about took me out. It would affect me for days. It would affect my mood and my reactions and how I showed up. And I had to learn how to mind my own business. And listen, I know that may sound harsh or weird, or how dare you tell me to mind my own business when this is my partner or my kids. Like, hear me out, guys. This was a phrase I told myself when Matt would come home from work in a bad mood or angry or whatever. I got to a point where I couldn't mentally take that on any longer, because the truth is it's not mine to take. Now, I could validate his feelings and let him know, ooh, that sounds rough and I'm here for you. Leave it at that. But leave it at that. He had to learn how to regulate his emotions. He had to learn how to cope and release them in healthy ways. If we constantly try to fix the moods of others, we're not only doing ourselves a disservice, we're doing them a disservice, because they're not learning how to solve their own problems or regulate. Let's talk about kids for a moment, okay? Because this is one that is tough for me personally, but I have the tools to manage it. And I see and I hear this all the time, that we want our kids to be happy. All right, guys, this is unrealistic. People are not happy all the time. We are humans. We are not robots. Kids will have all sorts of emotions, just like adults do. And it's our jobs as parents to help teach them how to regulate those emotions, not judge them, not act like they're bad. We teach them that it's okay to have those feelings. We teach them how to use their emotions for fuel, how to solve problems, how to release them in healthy ways. When our kids or even our spouse or anyone gets angry, we sometimes take it personally to where we feel as though it's our fault. So we tend to want to make it feel better. We want to make it better. We want to make them feel better. And this is common when we've had trauma or been harmed or blamed, okay? We take things personally because we've been told or conditioned that they're angry because of us. And that's not always true, guys. This is where we have to really try and use our logical brain. Like, did I really do something to upset them, or are they just upset? Either way, we need to let them feel. And many people think that if they're not fixing or rescuing or managing, someone else's emotions, that they're being cold or unsupportive. And that's just not true. Like, you can sit with someone, you can listen, you can validate, you can care deeply about what they're going through without trying to control the outcome or fix or, provide solutions. There's a difference between support and emotional overfunctioning. Support's going to say like, hey, I'm here. Overfunctioning says, I need to change how you feel so that I can feel okay. Sometimes this might not be the case, but you got to be honest with yourself here. Are you trying to fix their feelings because you're trying to fix your own anxiety or your own discomfort? Like, this is a huge thing that we have to ask ourselves. Someone being angry, someone being sad or being distant or being overwhelmed, it activates a fear in us, okay? It's uncomfortable for us. And we've got to learn to sit in that discomfort and say, you know what? They're allowed to feel this. I'm still safe. That's a massive growth step. And what we're really talking about here is emotional responsibility. Okay, it's taking responsibility for our emotions and allowing them to have responsibility for their emotions. And this is a life skill that I feel like, everybody's got to learn. And I think that we struggle with this as a society. But if we constantly regulate everyone around us, they're never going to build this skill of emotional responsibility. Like I said before, this applies to partners, to the kids, to your friends, to coworkers, to strangers online. When someone is frustrated, we immediately jump in with solutions or distractions. How many times have you tried to distract your kids from something so that they wouldn't feel anything? Or we try to manage their moods, or when we do this, we're unintentionally sending the message that, you can't handle your own feelings, or it's not okay to feel how you feel. And over time, this is going to create dependence or resentment and even emotional immaturity. So if we let people struggle just a little, it's not cruel. You know what? That's how resilience is built. Guys, people wake up tired. People have bad days at work. People feel insecure. People feel stressed. People get triggered by their own past. None of that may have anything to do with you. When we've been blamed or gaslit or harmed in relationships, we do develop a hypervigilant brain that assumes that if someone is upset, I must have caused it. And part of healing is learning to pause and reality check. Did I actually do something, or is this their internal experience? That pause is what protects your peace and helps you have a healthier response. Now let's go back to validation for a second, because a lot of people get confused with validation and thinking that it means that you're agreeing with somebody, but that's not necessarily what validation is. Because you can say, like, that sounds really frustrating, or I can see why you'd feel overwhelmed, or I'm here if you want to talk, without saying, this is not, or this is my fault, or let me fix this, or I'll change everything so you feel better. It's just, validation is really just like letting them know that you're there for them and you know that it's frustrating. It doesn't mean that you agree with how they're feeling, but you don't have to take it on just because you're validating that. So I want to go back to kids for just a second. Kids do need emotional coaching. They don't need that emotional rescue, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to rescue them from hurt emotions, and wanting the kids to be happy all the time is a very modern pressure. Because healthy, we want them to be healthy, and healthy means feeling all the feelings, and it means learning how to regulate them and how to use them as fuel and recognizing them and all those things, because no one's always happy. Sometimes kids are frustrated. Sometimes they're jealous. Sometimes they're disappointed. Sometimes they're angry. Sometimes they're embarrassed. Our job is not to eliminate these feelings. Our job is to help them move through them safely, without harming themselves and without harming others. When we rush to fix every discomfort, we're robbing them of the chance to build the frustration tolerance, problem solving, self-soothing, confidence, and kids who learn, I can survive hard feelings. They're going to become adults who don't collapse under stress. It's really an important skill to learn. It's our job as parents to be the safe parent for them and to allow them feel what they feel without reacting negatively. Our job is to teach them how to use those emotions. Just like we teach you guys here that anger is an important emotion, telling you, to make some changes. We don't teach you to suppress it, and I won't teach my kids to suppress it, but I will teach them to release it in a healthy way. Our son gets angry. I tell him, hey, go for a run. And it works. He enjoys it. He's like, I feel much better. And we want to offer solutions all the time. But when someone is angry or hurt or sad, that's not really what they're looking for. We need them to know it's okay to feel however they're feeling, but, let's talk about it. Have open conversations about feelings without taking them on. And this is going to take practice, y'all, and it's not going to be perfect. My daughter is so real with me about this. When I try to offer solutions, she'll say, I know these things, but just let me be mad for a bit. Matt said that to me as well before, and I get it. He's asked me to let him just be angry. They get through it. They manage it. They regulate, and they allow it to pass. When we try to fix it, we're telling them that their emotions are wrong. And then over time, they learn that, negative emotions are bad, and they suppress them or release them in very unhealthy ways. Okay, I'm going to shift for a moment because I don't want this to come across as just let them be assholes. All right, that's not what I'm saying. Letting someone feel does not mean that you accept and tolerate mistreatment. All right, someone being sad, stressed, a bit angry is one thing. All right, but someone being verbally abusive, explosive, manipulative, or unsafe is another. There is a massive difference between allowing emotions and allowing harmful behavior. Every human being is allowed to feel angry. Every human being is allowed to feel sad, stressed, overwhelmed, jealous, scared, all the negative emotions we try to avoid. And feelings are not the problem. The way those feelings get expressed is what matters. Someone can be angry without screaming at you. Someone can hurt without tearing you down. Someone can be overwhelmed without making the entire household feel unsafe and like they're walking on eggshells. Emotional maturity is not about never having big emotions. It's about taking responsibility for how you handle them. So when I say let them feel, I'm not telling you to stand there and absorb someone's emotional explosion, okay? I'm not telling you to tolerate behavior that makes you feel small, scared, or constantly on edge. What I'm saying is this. You can validate someone's feelings without taking ownership of them. You can care about someone's pain without becoming their emotional punching bag. You can have compassion and still have boundaries. It can sound like, I can see you're really upset. I'm here to talk when you can do it respectfully. Or, I understand this is hard, but I'm going to step away until things calm down. That's not abandoning someone. That's taking emotional responsibility. A healthy relationship is not one where nobody ever gets upset, okay? It's one where both people are responsible for how they show up when they are upset. It's about the behaviors and the reactions. Boundaries are often the very thing that creates the conditions for real change. So when you stop absorbing and fixing and managing someone else's emotions, they're faced with their own patterns. And sometimes that leads to growth, but sometimes it doesn't. But either way, you stop losing yourself. And that's what matters, because you're allowed to care about someone and still care about yourself. Both can exist at the same time. What I'm saying is that how someone reacts to their emotions is important. We don't allow them to be explosive. And if they are, we have to make decisions on if this is something we want ourselves and our kids exposed to. So as we wrap up today, I want you to really sit with this. You are not responsible for fixing everyone else's emotions. You're not responsible for keeping the peace at all costs. You're not responsible for making sure everyone around you is always happy. That's not love. That's not support. Over time, it's slowly going to disconnect you from yourself, and we don't want that. Caring about people doesn't mean carrying what's not yours. You can listen, you can validate, you can show up, you can be compassionate without taking ownership of someone else's mood reactions or struggles. And this is important, all right? Letting someone feel their feelings does not mean accepting mistreatment. It does not mean tolerating yelling, manipulation, disrespect, or the bullshit. That's when things become personal. Healthy relationships allow emotions. They do not allow harm. All right, there's a difference. And growth looks like learning to pause before jumping into fix. It looks like letting your kids be frustrated. It looks like allowing your partner to have a bad day without making it about you. It looks like recognizing when you actually did something wrong and when you didn't. And it also looks like having the courage to step away when behaviors cross a line. You can care deeply about someone and still choose yourself. You can be supportive and still have boundaries. You can love someone and still refuse to participate in unhealthy patterns. Again, both can exist at the same time. And guys, this is not easy work. I'm not claiming it is, but this is the recovery piece that we talk about. If you've spent years being told that everything was your fault or that it was your job to hold everything together, it's going to be difficult to change this pattern, but it's fucking worth it. Okay? It's worth it. The more you practice it, the more confident you become in who you are. And the more confident you become, the clearer your decisions get. And that clarity is going to change your life. So let them feel, but don't let them be assholes. That's all I have for this week. Until next time, I'm Paige. Bye.